Okay, so my name's James Cundall. I'm CTO and technical co-founder of Mio, and we provide enterprise-grade interrupt for Office 365 and Google Workspace. This is a personal project and introduction to using Claude Code. It's not definitive. It's supposed to be a 101 quick introduction to encourage engineers to consider using Claude on their existing projects. And it's supposed to be just a practical introduction rather than an in-depth review or explanation of Claude. The version I've got installed at the moment is just sitting on my Mac. And I want to show you how I think it can save me some time upgrading a legacy project that I have out in the world that isn't doing much traffic. It's not particularly active in the public domain, but I would like to get it upgraded, make sure it's a little bit more secure, and get Claude to take an interest in it, see if it can uh, make any recommendations, maybe some SEO updates, security updates, that kind of thing. Right now, it's running, as I said, on a public domain. I've also got a version of it running here, being tunneled with ngrok. It's on a random domain, and we'll get Claude to make updates on my laptop, and I will show on the browser. You can see on the screen the updates that it's making. Right now, the first thing, it's literally just a project of a very bare bones PHP project. So first thing I notice in here is you've got an old CGI bin that just shows me how old this project really is. There's some raw index PHP files. And what I want to do here is get the whole thing upgraded into a Laravel project, which is how I do all my development nowadays. So this is, as I said, many years old, so it's well due a review and an update. What it displays is pretty much just a static set of pages, as you can see here. It's got an about page, contact page. It supports an app that's currently in the App Store. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm in a directory with the files that I want to upgrade on, and I'm going to assume that you've already installed Claude if you're following along with this. But Claude's definitely installed on my machine. So, but it isn't aware of this project. So whenever you launch Claude, it will look at the directory that you're launching from. So I'm going to launch Claude now, and it's going to ask me, do I want to trust this folder, which is pretty safe. That I've got nothing in here that I want to hide, and I'm happy for it to have access to. So I'm going to say, yes, I trust this folder. And at the moment, there's nothing else in here. And what we want to do is get a claude.md file generated. So the purpose of that is to start to give it some context in terms of what this project's all about. And every time Claude boots, it can understand what's going on in this folder, what's going on with the project. We can set it rules, conditions, what have you. So it understands what we're trying to build and maintain every time. So the first thing I'm going to do is just type init. And what it's going to do is start crawling through the directory we've just launched it in. And it will start creating this claude.md file. Now, as you can see, it's running local commands. This is as a Mac, as I said, so it's just using some fairly common discovery tools, things like find, ls, and it's hopefully not going to take too long because there aren't that many files in here. See how long this takes. I'm currently connected to Claude using the API billing method, so I'm getting charged as it crawls its way through and makes these decisions and recommendations. You may have an ongoing subscription version, but essentially you're going to be running the same requirements. So now it wants to run a command that it thinks is a little risky. I'm quite happy for it to have access to Git on this project. And so I'm going to allow it to continue. And we can go into the detail on that in a separate video. So it continues to crawl, continues to find what's going on. Okay. So it's pretty happy it's found some PHP files, some JavaScript files, probably some CSS files. And now it's asking me finally if I'd like to create that file. Now, just for speed, I'm going to say, yeah, you can edit everything during this session because I'm pretty happy with the access I've granted it. So here we go. Here's a quick summary of what it thinks it's found. So it knows it's a local PHP directory, index PHP, and an include file. It's got no framework. It's got a basic contact form with a mail attachment in it. It looks pretty dated. This is not how we want to be writing modern PHP applications. I seem to remember at the time it was done in a hurry, so I'm not surprised it's not particularly impressed. One of the first things I want to tell it about is my environment. So I need to tell it that I'm using ngrok as a tunneling domain for this. So I'm going to update it and provide it some additional context to how we're going to run and test this. And don't really mean files, do I? I mean changes in real time. Okay, and hopefully it will now record that note, and that will be added to its to the claude.md file for future reference. So it also understands that the fact that we're doing hot changes, it's also going to see those changes immediately, which is great. Okay, so what I want to do now is get this PHP project moved into a more modern framework. And I do most of my projects that are PHP based. In fact, all of my PHP projects are now in Laravel. So what I would like to do is put Claude into planning mode. And we can do this by hitting Shift Tab. And it says plan mode on. So what that's going to do is instead of it just going headfirst into making code changes, I want to get it to think about what we're going to do in terms of upgrading this to a Laravel project. So what I'm going to say is I would like you to analyze the current code base, then create a migration plan to move this into a current Laravel framework. Please migrate all the files, find and ensure create appropriate routes, etc. for it. Now, normally I do a lot more detail than this, but I feel like this is such a small and simple project. I'm just going to give it this initial round of planning. I can also just say, if you have any questions, it helps if you can spell, please ask me during planning. I'm going to hit return and we'll see what this comes up with. So here we go. Let me explore the codebase thoroughly before designing the migration plan. So it knows exactly what I'm asking it to do. And it's going to have another look at the files. There's only a handful of files in here, so hopefully it won't take too long. And what's nice about the planning stage is it's not making changes, as I said, so it will go through and work through the best options for getting this migration done, rather than doing it file by file by file, which is probably what an engineer would do after you've installed the initial framework. This is going to try and do this as a collective pattern. Okay, so it's done its exploration. Now it's going to look at the next stage, which is exploring some JS files, some image files, a few static files I've got. Okay, and again, now it wants to run a dangerous command, or what it particularly it might consider a risky command, so I'm just going to let it do it. But it's fine for this context. And you can tune Claude to not keep prompting you for these things, but as we're in default mode, it's going to keep asking me. Okay, so it's busy coming up with a plan, I'm sure. Now, as it's making this plan, there's a prompt there that we can see. It says double tap escape to rewind the code and/or conversation to previous point in time. What's good about Claude is it makes regular snapshots and is easy to revert changes. Now, we're not in code change at the moment; we're in planning mode. But Claude does have the ability to double tap escape to revert, or you can tell it to undo recent changes. Okay, well, we're obviously giving a lot of thought to this project. We're now coming up to 3 minutes into the planning stage. Okay, that's the next exploration done. It's now examining the PHP files. Okay, and now it's happy it's gathered the information it needs. It's going to start working on a migration plan with a planning agent. And Claude is very good at delegating requirements off to additional agents and sub agents to create dedicated tasks that then will aggregate the results and pull them back together, much in the same way as you might do as a manager, and delegate tasks to individuals and then get that information consolidated. Okay, so still wants to keep looking at files, so make sure I let it carry on. So again, just a reminder, this is all part of the planning process. We haven't created any files yet. And once Claude is happy it's got the plan together that it wants, it's going to present it to me, and then we can either refine that plan or accept it as it is and let it start doing the implementation work. Okay, so we're about 7 minutes in, and the initial plan is still continuing. It says the main plan's been done. It's now going to look at some more files, and it's now going to create that final plan file. So let's see what it comes up with. Okay, now we've got the updated plan. We're about coming up to 10 minutes in. As you can tell, I've been cutting chunks of this video out just to save us some time. But let's see what that plan looks like. Now it's scrolled straight to the bottom here, but I'm going to bring it back up again. And it's got quite a bit of technical detail in here. Now this is all accessible within a local file. I could edit that file, and we can edit the project that I've got in hand. So let's see what it's got to say. It recognizes the existing site as a plain PHP marketing website, which is what I said at the beginning. No database, no framework. So super clean, super easy. Shouldn't be a hard migration. It was a clean migration to a Laravel 11. Well, I'm going to challenge it on that because I would like it to be a Laravel 12 project. This new project is created in the sibling directory, so the original site is untouched. So it's preserving the original files, which is great. It's then going to step through. It talks about moving assets around, moving images. We've got a whole bunch of things related to the routes here and the controllers. Mailable. There's all sorts of stuff, and so clearly it's made a number of changes here. Now, there's a few things I want to refine here. So here's the verification checklist, which is great. This is something it will do at the end, and it will tell me how I should test it at the end. I want to make a few changes. So let's rather than manage it, I'm going to just tell it what to change. So I'm going to pick option 4. Say what I want you to do is actually create this as a Laravel 12 project, and I would also like to make the change in place. So let's tell it what I want to do. Please back up files first and make the changes in place so I don't have to reconfigure my test web server. Let's see what it says. Okay, so it's recognized the request and it's going to update the plan. Okay, it's updated the plan. It does say I can preview the plan by typing /plan, but I think we're good to go. So let's just go back to the notification book here. Okay, one important thing to flag before approving, Laravel requires the web server document root to point to public subdirectory. That's where index lives, that's fair enough. After in-place migration, the server root would need to change, so that's totally fair. Here's the new plan. I'm going to tell it to continue, and I will make the change. And then here's the revised plan again. So I'm just, and it's also interestingly aware of Turnstile, which is a project I would like to add to the contact form, which is a bit like Google Capture. And it's identified that I've tried to attack that at some point in the past. But in the meantime, let's try and get this migration working. So I'm going to say yes, auto accept edits. And here we go. We'll see what it starts building. Okay, so it's going to walk us through the steps it's going to make. Okay, so it wants to create a backup of everything as I asked it to. So I'm going to say yes, go ahead. And here's a nice little checklist it's going to work its way through. Yes, I'm going to let it create that temporary project. Okay. We're going to move the scaffold project and remove the temporary file. So yeah, we can let it go ahead with that. Okay, it's going to make some assets here in public, which is good. Okay, so we've got the M file and the mailer. It's now writing the routes file. Okay, and then it wants to create a mailer skeleton, so we're going to let it do that. And now it's finally creating the views that we need. Okay, so we're about 5 minutes into the actual engineering work now. And we're, according to the plan, we're on the final step of setting up the blades. Okay, and we are still updating some of the build files. I see some JavaScript being updated there. Okay, and there's the migration plan complete. All right. So now the final prompt is telling me to go and update my web server. Well, I did a little cutaway and I went off and did that off screen. So you should now see me being able to test it on the correct document root in /public. So let's see what happens when I switch back to this page here. Okay, well, I just reloaded the page and appear to have loaded exactly the same page as expected. Let's try the features page. Looking good. News page. About page. And contact page, which is great. Now, let's have a little look at exactly what has happened in this directory. I'm going to open a new tab here. And if you remember before, everything was static files. Well, we can still see index.php is in that directory. Let's see what's in public. So public has its own index.php, which is where the web server should be running from. So let's ask, let's just see what the root index.php currently has in it. That's the old code. Okay. So what I'm going to ask it to do now is, can you clean up any old files that don't relate to Laravel 12, e.g. the old indexed PHP files. Let's see what it comes up with here. Okay, so that's now clean. And it's saying I've got everything I wanted back in there. So I've reloaded the page and my site still loads as if by magic. So that should mean that back in this directory, my index.php has now gone. And if I go into public, all my new files are here. Okay, that's great. All right, so this is looking good. So I now have a working Laravel website that seems on the surface to be exactly the same as my static files that I gave it to work from, which is great. Okay, so that is, in my mind, a successful migration of a static PHP project into Laravel 12. Undertaken entirely by Claude. Now, it may have been a fairly simple project, and I'm going to give a couple more examples of what else we could ask it to do here, but I think that's pretty good. Last thing I've done here, just on the screen, is after I finish this session, I've asked it to compact, which basically condenses all the conversation into a more digestible readable format for the next time we use Claude. So that's all been done. I'm going to shut down the session and then we'll start again, and I'm going to give it another short but discrete piece of work to do, which I think we'll be putting Cloudflare's turnstile into this contact form. Okay, let's leave it there.